Imagine turning 18, the moment you've been waiting for your whole life, only to have it stolen by your sister's tantrum. No cake, no celebration, not even a happy birthday. What would you do if your own family erased your milestone just to pamper the golden child? This isn't just a story about a canceled party. It's about betrayal, escape, and watching everything crumble when the person holding it all together finally walks away. Do you think parents ever realize the damage they cause when favoritism becomes a family's foundation? Stick around, because the twist ending will leave your jaw on the floor. Family is supposed to be your safe place, the one constant where love, respect, and support never run out. But what happens when that foundation cracks? When the people you trust most treat you like an afterthought while handing everything to someone else on a silver platter? That's the reality for the young man at the center of this story. He wasn't just the younger sibling, he was the backbone, the fixer, the invisible glue keeping his household running. Meanwhile, his older sister carried the crown of golden child showered with gifts, excuses, and endless second chances. From the outside, their life looked picture perfect. A big home in a gated community, vacations, luxury cars, and parents with successful careers. But behind those polished doors lived a painful imbalance. One child learned that tears and tantrums could buy anything, while the other was told that maturity and responsibility meant handling life alone. He carried the weight quietly, believing that when he turned 18, finally an adult in the eyes of the world, things would change. For once, he dreamed of being celebrated, of having his moment in the spotlight. Instead, just days before his birthday, everything unraveled. His carefully planned celebration was snatched away, not by accident, but because his sister claimed her emotional comfort mattered more than his milestone. That moment wasn't just a cancellation. It was the spark that lit a fire he couldn't put out. And the decision he made after that day changed his family forever. Turning 18 was supposed to feel like freedom. For years, he imagined this milestone as the day he would finally be treated with respect, not as the invisible caretaker, not as the reliable problem solver, but as a person whose needs mattered. The countdown had been marked with anticipation, the backyard party planned down to the details, invitations sent, his favorite cake ordered, and the chance to finally celebrate with the people who truly believed in him. For once, he wanted to step out of the shadows and into the light, but the shadow never left. 3 days before the celebration, his sister's dream vacation crumbled. The glamorous Cancun getaway she'd been hyping up for months, spray tans, designer bikinis, photo shoots ready for Instagram, collapsed under a storm of friendship drama. In a house where her emotions were treated like natural disasters, this meltdown was the earthquake that shook everything. Doors slammed, tears flowed, and her parents mobilized like firefighters rushing to a blaze. They canceled their own plans, ordered her favorite takeout, and comforted her like she'd lost a loved one. Then came the gut punch. She announced she couldn't handle a party at home. Too fragile, too overwhelmed, too emotionally triggered. And just like that, his 18 years of waiting, planning, and dreaming were swept aside. He pleaded. He reminded them of the guests, the months of work, the significance of adulthood. But his words hit a brick wall. His parents nodded at her pain, not his. "You're strong enough to handle disappointment," his father said. His mother added, "She's more sensitive, sweetheart. She needs calm right now." The party was canceled. The humiliation of calling every guest, stumbling through half-truths, and pretending he was sick burned deeper than any punishment he'd ever received. Friends were confused, his girlfriend was hurt, and even his teacher looked worried when he broke the news. He carried the shame of knowing the truth, that he didn't matter enough in his own home to be celebrated. And when his birthday finally arrived, silence. No balloons, no cake, no gifts, not even a whispered happy birthday. Just another Sunday with his mom blending smoothies for his sister and his dad buried in work. He wasn't just ignored, he was erased. That was the breaking point. In the stillness of that day, he realized adulthood wasn't a title his parents would grant him. It was a choice he could seize for himself. He wasn't powerless anymore. He had savings from his job at the gym, scholarships to a university, and most importantly, people outside those four walls who valued him. That evening, he began dialing the lifelines he'd quietly built. His coach's family, who treated him like a son, welcomed him without hesitation. His boss promised more hours and support. Even his school counselor stepped in to help map the logistics of finishing senior year while living independently. For a week, he played the part of the dutiful son, moving through routines while packing away his true intentions. Piece by piece, he carried his life out of that house. Clothes, trophies, documents, the things that mattered most. Nobody noticed, nobody asked, and maybe that proved his point more than anything else. He was invisible unless they needed him. The following Saturday, while his parents were out and his sister distracted at the mall, he executed his final move. Garbage bags filled with belongings were loaded into his truck. His room was stripped bare. On the bed, he left a note alongside his house key, a declaration of independence, a refusal to be their silent servant any longer. "Don't contact me," it read, "unless you're ready to apologize and change." He pulled away from the driveway without looking back. The relief was immediate. The air tasted different, lighter, freer. For the first time, he wasn't waiting for recognition or permission. He had taken it. His new home with his coach's family was a world apart. Dinners filled with laughter, questions about his day, genuine interest in his future. He wasn't just a placeholder. placeholder, he was valued. Meanwhile, the house he left behind began to crack. Without him reminding, organizing, fixing, and covering, the gears of family life ground to a halt. Missed bills, forgotten deadlines, and unraveling routines mounted quickly. But the most fragile piece wasn't the parents, it was the sister. Without her brother cleaning up her chaos, her perfect facade collapsed, and watching from a safe distance, he realized something powerful. Sometimes the only way to expose the truth is to step out of the shadows and let the dysfunction reveal itself. But this was just the beginning. The storm brewing inside that house was only getting started, and the destruction would be far greater than anyone expected. At first, the silence from his parents felt almost eerie. No calls, no texts, no attempt to drag him back. For a moment, he wondered if they even noticed he was gone. But within days, the mask cracked. The first voicemail arrived, his mother's trembling voice carefully rehearsed. "Sweetheart, we didn't mean to upset you. Your sister was having a hard time. Come home and we'll talk." He replayed it once, then deleted it. The second message was sharper, laced with guilt-tripping. "Do you know how selfish you're being, leaving us like this? We sacrificed everything for you." By the third, his father had taken over, his tone stern and cold. "You're acting immature. Real adults don't run away when life gets hard." But the irony was glaring. For years, they had treated him like an adult when it suited them, expecting him to babysit, to cook, to fix, to manage. Now that he was finally choosing his own path, suddenly he was a child again. Meanwhile, the fallout inside the house began to spiral. Without him holding things together, small cracks widened into full-blown disasters. His sister, so used to being the center of gravity, couldn't handle the shift. She expected the world to orbit her tantrums, but without her brother mediating, her demands fell flat. Her parents tried, but they were exhausted. Between their demanding jobs and her constant meltdowns, they realized just how much invisible labor he had been doing all along. It started with little things: missed trash days, laundry piling up, bills misplaced, then bigger problems. His sister's grades tanked without him tutoring her, and her car broke down because no one remembered to schedule maintenance. Every time something went wrong, tension built, arguments sparked, and the house grew heavier with resentment. Word of his departure spread fast through the community. His coach, teachers, and friends all rallied behind him. For once, people saw the truth. The responsible, dependable kid wasn't just lucky to have such a perfect family. He had been carrying them on his back. And now that he'd stepped away, the image crumbled. One night, about a month after he left, his parents showed up unannounced at his new place. They stood at the doorstep, visibly uncomfortable. Their polished confidence cracked. His mother's eyes darted nervously while his father's jaw tightened like he was holding back anger. They didn't ask how he was doing. They didn't apologize. Instead, they launched straight into negotiation. "Your sister misses you," his mother said. "She needs you right now," his father added. "If you're serious about being an adult, then prove it. Come back, help the family, and we'll make it up to you." He stood in the doorway, calm but resolute. For years he would have caved, seeking their approval, desperate for scraps of love. But now he saw them clearly. They didn't want him back because they loved him. They wanted him back because they needed him to clean up their mess. "No," he said simply. "I'm done being your backup plan." The look on their faces said everything. His father's pride cracked into anger. His mother's sadness twisted into guilt. They left without another word, but that night marked a turning point. As weeks turned into months, his life blossomed. He threw himself into his studies, excelled at his job, and built bonds with people who actually valued him. His coach's family celebrated his belated birthday with a small surprise gathering. Nothing extravagant, but filled with laughter, warmth, and love. It was more than he ever received in 18 years under his own roof. Meanwhile, the implosion at his parents' house reached its peak. His sister, without her safety net, spiraled into entitlement-driven chaos. She lashed out at her parents, accused them of not doing enough, and threatened to cut them off if they didn't bend to her every whim. The irony was painful. The very parents who had sacrificed their son's happiness to appease her now faced the monster they had created. He watched from a distance, not with bitterness, but with clarity. It wasn't his job to fix them anymore. It wasn't his responsibility to heal wounds he didn't cause. For the first time, he allowed himself to live without guilt, without carrying the weight of people who had chosen favoritism over fairness. And just when his parents thought things couldn't get worse, the final collapse was on the horizon, one that would shatter the illusion of their perfect family forever. The breaking point came quietly, almost unremarkably, but the aftermath was explosive. His sister, drowning in her own chaos, had reached her senior year of high school. College applications were due, deadlines looming, and she had no one to hold her hand through the process. For years, she'd relied on him to draft essays, keep track of due dates, and polish her image. Now she was left scrambling. When rejection letters started arriving, the tantrums grew louder. The prestigious schools she bragged about, all no's, the safety schools, waitlisted. Her parents tried to blame the admissions system, but deep down they knew the truth. Without her brother smoothing every rough edge, her golden child image couldn't survive. Then came the final straw. One evening, after another screaming match, his sister packed a bag and stormed out, threatening to find people who actually care about her. But unlike her brother, she had no plan, no support system, no one willing to take her in. Within days, she came crawling back, but the damage was done. For the first time, his parents saw what it felt like to be on the receiving end of her entitlement. entitlement. Their once perfect household collapsed under the weight of reality. His father's work performance slipped, his mother's health began to falter, and the stress of constantly catering to their daughter drained them dry. The family that once looked flawless from the outside now whispered of dysfunction, disappointment, and downfall. And all the while, he thrived. In his new life, opportunities bloomed. With no one undermining him, he poured his energy into academics, athletics, and friendships. Professors noticed his drive. His boss praised his leadership. He was building something his parents never gave him, a future defined by respect and self-worth. But then, the inevitable happened. Months after his departure, his parents reached out again, this time, not with anger or guilt, but desperation. Their voices cracked with exhaustion over the phone. His sister had become impossible. Their finances were slipping, and the house felt empty without him. They wanted him back, not as a son, but as a savior. This time, he didn't just refuse. He drew a boundary. You didn't celebrate me. You didn't protect me. You didn't even see me. And now you want me to come back and fix everything? No, I love you, but I will never live like that again. There was silence on the other end, a silence heavy with realization. For the first time, his parents were forced to sit with the truth. Their favoritism had cost them their son. The irony was cruel but fitting. In choosing to worship their golden child, they had lost the one who held their family together. In shielding their daughter from consequences, they had ensured she would crumble when real life demanded accountability. And in dismissing their son's worth, they had driven him toward people who cherished him more than they ever did. From that point on, the distance became permanent. Holiday invitations went unanswered. Family group chats stayed muted, and his presence at home became a memory. He wasn't cruel. He simply chose peace over chaos. Years later, when people asked about his family, he would smile faintly and say, "I had to leave to become who I am." And though there was sadness in those words, there was also pride. He had broken the cycle, because sometimes walking away isn't an act of rebellion. It's the only way to survive. And as for his parents, they learned far too late that you can't build a family on favoritism. Sooner or later, the foundation will crack, and when the glue holding it all together decides he's had enough, everything falls apart. This wasn't just the story of a birthday ruined. It was the story of a family undone by their own choices, and a son who finally chose himself. So here's the question I want to leave with you. What would you have done? If your parents canceled your 18th birthday, erased your milestone, and then expected you to come back and clean up their mess, would you forgive them, or would you walk away like he did? Stories like this hit hard because they're not just about one family. They're about patterns we see everywhere. Favoritism, guilt-tripping, and treating one child like the fixer while the other gets crowned as the favorite. It destroys more than birthdays. It destroys trust. If you've ever felt like the forgotten child, or if you've lived through something similar, drop your story in the comments. I want to hear your perspective, and if you think families should hear this warning, share this video. It might be the wake-up call someone needs. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more stories that hit this deep.